Welcome to the August 16th, 2021 meeting of the Rotary Club of Jamestown. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, singing of our national anthem, and repeating of the four-way test. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed. And the rockets red, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Let us repeat the four-way test. Of the things we say or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? With that, I will welcome Amy Roller for our invocation.
Let us pray. This prayer is called For Justice. Mighty and compassionate God, you come to us in our great joys and in our crushing sorrows and in the everydayness in between. We know you love all people as a mother and father love their children. And now we are grateful that you have given us the privilege to pray for an even wider circle of persons in their needs, and simply because they are and have come into our field of vision. You ask us to bring what we have, our good intentions, our mixed motives, our broken natures, our half-hearted commitments. And we pray that in our fragile world, our violent world, our impoverished world, we might plead that what is broken will be made whole again. Send us into the world and send us down our own streets to the poor with good news of food, shelter, and promises of relief from poverty's wounds. To those bound up for one reason or another with actions that liberate, that set them free. To those without hope or insight with reminders of bright visions and eye-opening revelations abiding in you and in the fresh wind of your spirit. And keep us tuned to your constant call to us to seek and work for justice in our small and large worlds, that one day all your children will find and relish peace. Amen.
And I welcome President-elect John Healy to announce our visiting Rotarians and guests.
We have Barb Erickson, wife of Ollie. Mike Miller, prospective member and in the process of being approved. So, yes, Margot Russell and her mother Sandy. So, welcome.
Thank you, John. Our Rotarily Yours recorder today is Chris Anderson. Our many thanks again to you and the Committee of Communications for all you do to help keep our club informed. As we continue to watch trends regarding COVID-19, our area is considered a substantial community transition. What that means is the CDC would recommend that vaccinated persons wear a mask while indoors and continue to require non-vaccinated persons to be masked. Our hope is to continue providing meetings in the current hybrid format until such time that either the DoubleTree or government orders prohibit continuation of the in-person portion. The board will continue to monitor and advise. And please remember that if you're feeling sick or uncomfortable meeting in person, or your workday just won't let you get here, please remember to Zoom in. And as always, I encourage anyone attending via Zoom to actively participate. If you have questions or announcements, we can hear you on our end. And if you're unmute, also you can put any notices into the chat box. I'm still looking for a couple committee chairs, fall fundraiser and social. Please let me know if you're interested in either of those. There will be a board of directors meeting this Friday, August 20th at 8 a.m. And the golf committee met Friday. I know we received an email during the week concerned about how many golfers we have. As noted on Friday, we were at about 16 teams. I expect we'll get a few more, so we will continue to proceed forward. That said, if you can sponsor, know any potential sponsors that haven't submitted their donations, we would greatly appreciate that. The deadline's been extended to Friday, August 20th. And keep in mind, the bronze level sponsorship at $100 is pure support to the foundation. So not a huge leap to be highly impactful. Hands-on Jamestown cleanup is taking place this coming Saturday, August 21st. We have a couple members signed up and could use more. Ruth Lundeen is spearheading this initiative. Please contact her with questions or to find out how to sign up online. There's also a flyer on the table with the link to their website. Vision Committee is meeting next Friday, August 26th at noon in the Rotary Club office in Faulkner. And our club will again be participating with Pedal for Polio. Our foundation committee is spearheading that. If you have any questions, contact Joni Blackman. And with that, any other committee chair announcements? Randy, if you would come up.
We had a fun night last night, as you recall, through the Wendy Sharp Fund, which is held at the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation. Funds come to the Rotary Club, of which we pass on to the Resource Center to help cover the expenses that are related to the camp that they offer starting last night through Wednesday of this week for their clients. And sometime, if you haven't had a chance, try to work into that opening night bonfire. Thank Amy Roller, who put the strong arm on her husband, Adam, and he was there, played the guitar, and our own Tim Edborg had his drums, and so we had a grand time. And I know the campers really enjoyed it. There was a lot of smiles. There were some up clapping, dancing. That's the part that's really worthwhile. And I know Greg and I talked about it. We were standing in the back and watching this, and you know, an event like that where you look out and you see these individuals, which so much look forward to 3 days a year. We hear about them Xing off days on the calendar leading up to that camp. I think we can all look around us and count our blessings more every day, you know, for the things that we have. Interesting is I left just as it was wrapping up, and as I walked back to my car and I was going through the woods, all of a sudden I heard taps being played, and that was our own Dr. Jones. So.
Thank you to everybody who's involved with the camp program. That is it's a pretty spectacular program. Anybody else with announcements? Anybody on the Zoom call? Well, then I guess it's time, Greg, for 50-50.
$46 for the winner, and I said, who is the most honest person in this room to draw a ticket? Kathy Birch.
Last 4 digits, 4760.
4760. Purple ticket. 45 to the winner. Oh. Congratulations, Kurt. Well, Sergeant at Arms Doug Conroe, welcome to the podium.
Briefly at the podium today because those I wish to honor and recognize are not here today. But I have a good memory, so perhaps next week will be. There was one thing in the newspaper, though, that I could bring to attention here. Babe Ruth's in town, as we noticed in the parking lot. And there's a picture in the paper, and Russ Dietrich was in the picture, and that's probably why he's not here. He's probably down in the stadium. But the name, the caption was not Russ Dietrich. The caption was Russ Eklund. So I think he should pay just because he got his name in the paper. I know you're Whitey, yeah, and it wasn't the Detroit Lions, Detroit. Yeah, I'm sure they will. And you're putting $1 in the pot will help. So good. We will look forward to receiving that. I'm looking for a musician because this is a special day and days, and Greg Jones is sitting there, but as much as I wish to favor him, the fact that he's alone means the pot's not going to be as big. So I've looked instead at Tim. The question, what momentous musical occasion occurred on this date in 1977?
What's that?
Not quite.
Oh, 77. That would track my. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Any other?
You're talking about this.
Okay. Any other? Or just go dig in your wallets there? Well, the alleged death of Elvis. I say alleged because people say he's still alive, but, you know. So bring it up here. And I did not note at the beginning that, thank you, Amy. You have to leave, and but you have graced us with a Abraham Lincoln Bill, which was really, really great. Oh, boy. That's pretty much where we're going today, I think. Any avid sportsmen in the room? Sports people? No. Okay, Phil, yeah, you're looking attentive. On this date, 1954. Yes, we'll give you time. On this date, 1954, what great sports news happened? Not an event, but news, reporting of the news.
That was when they let the first Swedish band at St. James.
Really? I'll be darned. Well, it also happened to be the first. It also happened to be the date of the first issue of Sports Illustrated. So Arbo wants to contribute, and I know Marion does. Away we go. So happy buck time. Come forward, one and all. We really need your happy bucks.
Happy $5. Okay. So Randy Graham and I have been helping out every year with Camp Anyasa. And probably, I don't know how long, 15 years we've been doing it, forever. And we are really, really blessed with Randy. So when I reached out to Randy this year, he said, Tim, I'm double booked. I can't do it. I just figured, yeah, we're going to probably not do it or can't cancel our end of it. And Tori, I think, recommended, hey, why don't we reach out to Adam Roller? Let me tell you something. Adam just was awesome. So my happy buck is for Adam, Amy. He entertained, and it was fantastic. So thanks.
Piggybacking on that, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I have 50 happy bucks for those campers that are out there. They were housebound for months on
Hang on a second,
end.
we're trying
And
to
they're
get sound
so,
here.
you can't hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Nobody else can.
Now try.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Not quite. Almost there. Yeah. I'll do it.
Okay, I have 50 happy bucks because we have 50 campers that are having the time of their lives. And it was said by Randy earlier, they look forward to this from the day they leave camp. They're waiting for the next summer when they can go back to camp. It's such a great experience for them. A big thank you to all of my friends there at the Rotary Club for supporting this, which is just so meaningful for all of these folks.
I just paid the money for the wrong answer. Sorry to all you Swedes out there. And then I'm putting in some more money because President Kevin was kind enough to spare me and you the agony of hearing a golf report from me, so he did it himself.
I'm going to add to Denise and Tim's happy buck, but this is not for my husband who played. It was a great time and brought my kids out. Tori had her kids out there. It was just really nice to be out at Camp Anyasa. But really, I want to give a happy buck for the staff, not only at Camp Anyasa, but the Resource Center staff. It really is God's work that they are doing, and just really moved by how caring they were for all of those campers and how much they delighted in seeing their delight. And that was just really nice to see. So that's one of my happy bucks. The other one is that we announced officially our 2021 campaign chairs for United Way. You might have seen that in various sort of news media throughout our city, and that is Chris and Mark Tarbrick. So I'm very excited for this year's campaign. Make no mistake, you'll probably hear a lot more about that from me, but for now, just a happy buck for that.
Okay, well, I have 3 happy bucks. One is for missing the campfire this weekend. I obviously was a good event and sorry we could not be there. So that's our happy buck. Another happy buck for our upcoming fundraiser. As anyone knows who's trying to run a fundraiser, everybody waits till the last minute. So our Fashion Fantasia in Paradise is Friday and Saturday. There's still tickets available and every ticket holder is entered to win a trip to Puerto Vallarta. So that, plus the fact that you're supporting a great organization like the Robert H. Jackson Center. So that's that happy buck. And my last one is for my son. He was featured this weekend in the New York campaign, New York State of Mind. He was one of the musicians that they featured. So I was watching Sunday morning and it was like, oh, I know that kid.
All right, so my happy buck is also for the Wendy Ann Sharp Fund that we hold at the Community Foundation, but I'll take a little different spin on it because you've already heard a lot about last night. About a week and a half ago, I had the opportunity to visit with Kathy Sharp and her 3 sons who were all in town. They were getting together for the first time in several years, all in one place, and got to hear lots of great stories. And that family is still just as committed to our community. Even though they don't live here, they're committed to that camp. They were just overjoyed that Rotary has continued to be dedicated to that. And so that is for the family. And I'll also put in my dollar without Russ here. Someone has to put in a dollar for Babe Ruth, right? So I went to the game last night. I threw a baseball from somewhere short of the pitcher's mound to somewhere short of home plate. It was a little bit embarrassing, but it wasn't terrible. But I would say if you have any time this week, and we're all very busy people, go to a game. It is really fun, and it just reminds you a lot about young people and these families that are from all over the country, and they're just loving being in our town. And I know that you would get joy from seeing how they feel about it.
Friday night, my husband treated my daughter and I to a wonderful evening with Harry Connick Jr. at Chautauqua. The concert was spectacular, but I won't go there because the first thing out of his mouth was, wow, this place is fantastic. I never knew it existed. He just couldn't get over how beautiful. And then he said, and our caterer was out of this world. Vicky McGraw and Elegant Edibles served Harry and his band, and he said she makes, bar none, the best strawberry rhubarb pie in the world. So there it is for Vicky.
I can do more than one happy buck. So Phil, Greg, in the spirit of Swedes in baseball, I grew up on Sweet Hill, as Norm could attest. And we had a baseball team called Sweet Hill Independent Team. But the words were too big to fit on our baseball caps, so we just used the first letters of the words.
Thank you to everybody's contributions today. It is my pleasure to welcome Becky Robbins from our program committee, who will introduce our guest presenter for today. For those attending by Zoom, again, remember you are welcome to ask questions during the Q&A. I'll work out the sound issue that we had today by voice or ask the questions through the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you. Every Saturday, my morning ritual, actually, I sit at the kitchen table, I listen to WJTN, and I read the weekend edition of the Post Journal. The first article I look for is a column written by today's speaker. I don't know if you've noticed, it used to be called Lakewood Lens, and now it's just headlines, I guess, for what you name the article. But I'm very pleased to have her here, along with her mother, Sandy Hickman Russell, who lived here most of her life. And Margot Russell is our columnist, a freelance writer, and an international tour director specializing in archaeological tours. She's traveled to 35 countries, but is always proud to call America and Chautauqua County her home. She grew up in Amherst outside of Buffalo and spent many happy summers on Chautauqua Lake in the family cottage. She worked as a news broadcaster for many years and has authored 2 books and many articles. Margot Russell.
This group will see it that way, but they'll just see this on the screen.
So they won't see this. Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for coming today. I am so humbled to be here. It's wonderful to know there are people who appreciate my column. I've been writing it now for nearly 10 years. Can't believe that. And sometimes I'm amazed I have something left to say. There's one thing, though, that I don't stray from in my thoughts and opinions in my column, and that's my love for Chautauqua County, for our unique and special place in the world. I try to remind people who've lived here all their lives that this isn't just any ordinary place. It's a place of true beauty, of good people, interesting history, architecture, fresh and abundant food. Because I am also an archaeological tour director, I've had the good fortune of seeing different pockets of the world. When I get home, I feel the need to remind people not to take where we live for granted. If you've been feeling a little jaded or claustrophobic after this COVID pandemic and need a refresher course, go skip rocks at the gorge again, or visit the rest stop overlooking the lake on 86. Watch the sunset at the end of a dock on a July night. There are numerous ways to be reminded how lucky we are here. So both my mother and father were born and raised here. So were their parents and their grandparents and great-grandparents. As a child, though, my father counted the days until he could leave the area, and only because he had big dreams. He actually took a train to New York City after graduating from Jamestown High School and tried to hop on a freighter boat to Burma so he could see the world. But the men on the dock he approached were more amused by him, and they couldn't offer him a job. So after he married, he moved his young family to Buffalo, where we were raised. But Jamestown and Chautauqua Lake were still a big part of our lives. We spent summers at our cottage. And what's so interesting is that years after he passed away at a rather young age, unfortunately, my mother and brother and I moved back here. Some of us full-time, some as summer residents. And what my father was trying to escape was the very thing we wanted most in our lives. We missed the lake. We missed our relatives here. We missed the good people. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about my travels, show you some pictures of the interesting places I've been, but I'll only do that so I can share my perspective with you. I don't want to be your aunt and uncle trapping you in front of a slide projector after a trip to Yellowstone Park. Listening to others' vacation stories is notoriously torturous sometimes. So I'll try to be easy on you. So people often ask, what is my favorite place that I've traveled to? And I don't have one. I try to approach travel as an adventure and take from each place whatever it offers. So out of the countries that I've been to, the place I've traveled to most is Peru, to the ruins of Machu Picchu. I think I've been there about 10 times. And there it is, about 8,000 feet above sea level. It may have been a place where the ruling class of the Inca civilization vacationed. And when the Spanish came and conquered Latin America, they never discovered Machu Picchu up there in the clouds. It is beautiful and otherworldly. And what I always take away from my experiences in Peru is that an American's definition of happiness doesn't necessarily apply to the rest of the world. I once went horseback riding in the Andes Mountains, and I passed by a woman standing in a field. 2 hours later, on my way back, I passed the same woman standing in the same spot in the very same field. And I've noticed that people from emerging countries, as we call them now, seem to live more in the present moment. This woman doesn't have cable television. She doesn't have a car. But in some very interesting ways, she has more freedom in her life than most of us. She has fewer trappings of modern life. And there's something to be said about living your life surrounded by beauty as she is. So this is a house we visit often in Peru on tour to show people how a typical Andean person might live. This is in the Sacred Valley outside of Cusco in Ollantaytambo. It is owned by descendants of the Incas. And the family that lives here is a very happy family. They think they have it made. It's a simple one-room house with a fireplace and a couple of beds and a table, but they're very proud of it. You can see above the fireplace here the skulls of their ancestors. Do you see them up at the top there? 3 skulls. This is decorating in Peru. So also you can see the remains of some of their pets. You can see the legs hanging down. They're proudly hung above the fireplace. There's also some offerings to their gods there as well. And not a great picture because I was trying to be indiscreet, but these guinea pigs running around the house. They just run around the house on their own. A couple of them will be dinner tonight. Guinea pigs are a delicacy in Peru. And I have eaten one, and guess what it tastes like? Chicken. That's right, that's right. So now I'll move on to Easter Island, a place I've been a few times. It's the most remote place on earth. You fly out of Santiago, Chile for 6 hours heading west, 2,300 miles from South America, and 1,100 miles from any other spot of land. And you know what? It really feels remote when you're there. Like every cell in your body knows that you're very isolated, that if you set off on a raft, you would not see somebody, another living being or a spot of land for 1,100 miles. And this is what tourists come to see there. The Moai heads of Easter Island. On average, each statue is about 13 feet tall and weighs about 14 tons. And there's about 1,000 of these Moai heads all over the island. And people come there to ask why, right? So popular culture and myth makers like to speculate that ancient aliens made these heads and set them all up, right? Because they're 14 tons. How did they get them down the hill? How did they set them up? How did they have enough people on the island, enough manpower to do this? But the slide you're looking at now absolves that whole ancient alien theory, because you can see that somebody was carving a Moai head there, right? You see him in the, you can see his head and his body, his long body. This is a Moai head that was never finished. They never, what they do is chisel the back out so that it is freed from the quarry, and then they carry it down the hill. So people actually did this. And if you ask an archaeologist, you know, did ancient aliens, you know, remove these Moai heads, they get very angry because they're proud of the achievements of the civilizations before us. And whenever we see something amazing like this, we don't have to blame it on some other or give the credit to some other race of people or somebody from another planet. The people that came before us were very skilled and crafty and intelligent. So now we move on. Well, two more pictures here, I'm sorry, of Easter Island. Always these wild horses running around the island. Beautiful thing to see. Here is one of my favorite Moai heads. He looks kind of perplexed about life, and so I identify with him a lot. I get it. He's, what am I doing here in this world? And here's a beautiful view of the Moai heads from a different angle. And this is the picture that makes you realize how isolated that island truly is, kind of like Gilligan's Island vibe, I think. So now we move on to El Salvador in Central America, where despite years of revolution, despite years of war, very little has changed for the people there. They are still picking coffee beans for wealthy landowners and corporations. And actually a new Starbucks was built recently in San Salvador, the first one in the whole country. So here you have these people picking coffee beans that get sent abroad. They can't enjoy their own coffee, but they have a Starbucks now. And most people can't afford the coffee. They don't make even the $3 that it takes to buy a cup of coffee there. And what I take away from a country like this is how the political machinations and sometimes leadership in certain countries, how the decisions they make really affect the people who live there, sometimes for decades or a century. So when you're there, there's a feeling of a darkness. There's been so much war, so much political upheaval that it has affected truly the people that live there. Next, we're going to take a look at India. Truly the most mind-boggling, intense trip I've ever taken. The crush of humanity, the hustle of the streets. There is something to see every single step. Monkeys in the doorway, or a family of 4 riding on a motorcycle. You see cows in the middle of the street, cars driving every which way without regard to lanes. And what I learned there is that life can be tragic and very beautiful at the same time. Beautiful temples, beautiful fabrics woven using ancient techniques. India, beauty and mayhem can exist in the same glance. Now here is a trip to Bulgaria that I took. What you're seeing is a 2,000-year-old chariot that was buried with the horses. So you see the horses and then you see the chariot behind there. To me, this former communist country is learning how to be free, learning how to market themselves, learning how to be independent. We know so little about Bulgaria, but what I learned there is they have an incredible array of understanding about man's past. And a lot of the past of our earth and of civilization still eludes us today. There's so much that we don't know about our ancient history. So the Thracians were the ancients that lived in the region of Bulgaria about 4,000 years before Christ. And these trinkets and pieces of jewelry that we see is what they were capable of making way back then. Beautiful gold trinkets and jewelry, which in my opinion can rival anything that we see today. So many of our ancients possessed advanced knowledge and skills like the Mayans, and yet we tend to look at them as if they were very primitive. Interesting that in Bulgaria, they're just starting to understand their past because under communism, they weren't allowed to look back. Communism is about looking at the collective future. And communist leaders always worry that people will romanticize the past too much. So there was no digging, there was no archaeology going on in Bulgaria for many, many decades. But now they have recently begun to dig and probe the past there again. This is an underground tomb that was just recently discovered. Absolutely amazing. You walk down this ramp that the ancients had built and you walk into this tomb. It was just filled with gold, chock full of it. So wonderful things going on in Bulgaria now archaeologically. And next we'll talk about Morocco, which is the most exotic of places. It felt very much like I jumped into an Aladdin Disney cartoon. The bustle of the souks, these marketplaces, men tinkering with brass, dyeing leather, polishing antique teacups. Markets explode with color and glowing lanterns and fascinating foods. Morocco was once the end of the spice route, and today it is as enchanting and mystical as it was then. I think there I learned the importance of preserving culture and ancient skills and techniques. These tinkerers and shopkeepers tell an important story about our past as humans. And you have to have the quintessential camel picture. I'm the last camel that you see there. Everybody's got to have a good camel picture. And here was our camel guide for our group that I'm sitting with. And then finally, we're going to talk about the Mayan ruins, which are really my favorite ruins, scattered about Guatemala, Mexico, Honduras, and Belize. There are so many ruins in Latin America, particularly in Mexico and Central America, that it's impossible to calculate how many ruins are there. I'm going to show you a map of some of the ruins just in Mexico. If you look up to the top right, the Quintana Roo region of Mexico, just in the little corner there, there's 2,200 ruins. It's just absolutely amazing. This is a beautiful ruin in Tajín. It's called El Tajín. And this is an undiscovered ruin. Okay, so when you're going through Latin America, you see these everywhere. And underneath these are temples, like the ones I just showed you. And there's thousands of them all over the place, undiscovered. And the likelihood that any of them will be uncovered is very low because it costs a lot of money to hire people to uncover a whole ruin. So you see these everywhere. Many of them that are undiscovered are raided by looters. All the treasures, you know, somebody important was buried inside. All the treasures are stolen and sold on the black market. But it's just amazing that what you see down there, the richness of our past is really quite something to see. So Mayanists, or archaeologists who study the Mayan ruins, are the true Indiana Jones of the world. The archaeologist I work most with in the Maya kingdom has discovered cave paintings, which is very rare in the Mayan world. He has actually pushed a Land Rover out of a cargo plane while he was up in the air because the cargo plane was faltering and was too heavy. So he pushed a brand new Land Rover out of the back of a cargo plane. He almost died of thirst when he was lost in the jungle. And he founded and uncovered and excavated an ancient Maya city over a decade called San Bartolo. So the takeaway from that is, if you want to become an archaeologist and have some great adventures, becoming a Mayanist is the way to go. So in closing, the Earth's cultures are really distinctive and beautiful, and the effort to homogenize the globe is a source of sadness to me. Each and every trip I take over 20 years, there is less and less of an original culture remaining. Thankfully, I see people all over the world working to maintain what's special about their own unique history. They form weaving cooperatives, host cooking classes, create organizations and museums to help preserve their culture. So I am optimistic about the world on a good day, even in these difficult times, because I have found such grace in every corner, having always observed the indelible human spirit wherever I go, like this beautiful girl from India. And here's our little corner of the world, a beautiful place indeed. Thank you. So does anybody have any questions or yes?
So for all the people here, if they could only visit one place in the world, what is your number one place that you suggest?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. I'm going to answer it. Oh, I'm going to Chautauqua Lake. Well, so I would, if I could go to one place, I would try to go to a place that incorporated everything. And that place is Turkey, because in Turkey you have Roman ruins. I mean, perfectly, they're still perfect. You can walk into a Roman library in Ephesus. The food there is amazing. The terrain is beautiful. There's so much to do there and experience. It has a little bit of beautiful temples, and it has a little bit of everything that I enjoy about traveling: food, archaeology, history, good people. Yes, thanks for your question. Anybody else? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, that is a loaded question. And I try to address that in my column sometimes, as much as the paper will let me. If you don't see my column sometimes in the paper, it's because they didn't like my column. So, and I try to push a little bit. I know 2 weeks ago, they published the one about jobs that I wrote about why is nobody working? And I was surprised they let that go. And then the next week I wrote about biscuits, like, okay, I calmed down. So I always have to pacify them after I do something heavy. Visiting communist countries, and especially former communist country, I see how people, the culture there struggles to become part of the modern world. Like in Bulgaria, they have all this great archaeology. I just showed you the chariot, the beautiful gold trinkets, the tombs, and they're trying to figure out how do we market people to come and visit here. They have no idea because the state took care of everything. You see people in Bulgaria who still wish for communism because it's not easy to promote yourself in so many ways, to go out and get a good job, to find a way to make money, to enrich and enlarge your communities, right? How that applies to here today, to our country and what's going on politically, I, personally truly believe that our country right now is under threat. And I find it to be very discouraging and scary. But I believe in the spirit of the American people. I believe in the end, we will prevail to keep our institutions, to keep our belief in freedom intact.
If the Bulgarians market,
Mm-hmm.
do they have infrastructure to support?
Well, that's another thing. So all of a sudden you're not a communist country and you're broke, right? And people are trying to learn how to pay taxes, right? So that's where the kitty comes from, is everybody pitches in, as we know. And so they don't have the infrastructure just yet to really promote themselves. And what's interesting is that Bulgaria became a tour, it became a thing when a lot of other countries became too dangerous. So I was actually in Turkey doing a tour when they had the Turkish uprising, the spring uprising. And I was in Istanbul in the square, staying in Taksim Square while this uprising started, which was a little scary. I called to the home office in New York, and Linda, who is the owner of Archaeological Tours, she's been around the world and seen it all. And I said, they're having an uprising right in front of our hotel and they're breaking windows. And she said, oh, stop being such a baby. You'll be fine. So, yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot, definitely a lot going on in the world. So when Turkey stopped being a place to go, which is a huge tour destination because it's such a fascinating country, they started looking at other places and like, how about Bulgaria? Can we offer tours there? And that's how it started there. And they're so tickled, that everybody's coming to their country to see their great stuff. I had a lot of great talks with the archaeologists there about how they're trying to put one foot in front of the other and learn about Facebook, learn about marketing, learn about, creating organizations that bring people together. And he told me that so many people, older people there, wished for communism again because, as I said, it's very hard for them after being taken care of. It's like a kid who you're you push out of the house when they're 18 or 20, right? They have to learn how to stand on their own 2 feet. Same thing with them. Anybody else? Yes.
Can you characterize a typical customer? What kind of people sign up for your tours? Are they
Yeah,
professors? Are they
yeah.
just regular Jack and Jane Doe?
We get a wide variety of people on the tours. So say there's 16 to 20 people per tour. They're 2 weeks long. There are a lot of professionals because, listen, this company does archaeology all day long. You're not going shopping, right, on our tours. You might visit 8 sites in one day, right? And the only time we do anything cultural is when it pertains to something important, like a weaving cooperative, that kind of thing. So who would be interested in that? Not shoppers, right? But, professors, people who really love history, lawyers, you get doctors. I've had a senator on a tour with us. I have a guy who was a quantum physicist, a very famous man in his field. He developed the CERN accelerator, under France and Switzerland, where they split atoms in that long tube. So yeah, there people like that, but also we just get, just regular folks like me, I remember this one guy was with us in Greece, and he worked as a laborer his whole life, but all he ever wanted to do was go to Greece. He saved for 20, 25 years. His wife was excited for him. They couldn't afford for him to accompany her and him. And so he would get up every day at breakfast and say, I can't believe I'm in Greece, which I loved his enthusiasm, because a lot of travelers on our tours are well-traveled, so they're kind of jaded, like, oh, well, moi heads, whippy-do. And, but this guy appreciated every second he was in Greece, and that's the kind of traveler I love. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you so very much for letting me come today. I enjoy being here.
Thank you, Margot. One of Rotary's major international programs is the eradication of polio in the world. We are down to just 2 countries where polio exists. In honor of you and thanks for your presentation today, we will make a donation in your name that will vaccinate 4 children who will never experience polio in their life. Remembering Rotary's international theme for this year, serve to change lives, caring for and serving others is the best way to live, because it changes not only other people's lives, but also our own. Thank you, and we are adjourned.